Hi, and welcome to this new lecture titled Knowledge Development of Teachers and Students. In this lecture, I'm going to touch up the issues of factors affecting knowledge, knowledge building, types of knowledge, function of knowledge, uh, opinion, negotiation, and how knowledge emerge, that knowledge emergement. As you know, the meeting between students and teachers affects the students' knowledge development. The meeting between teachers and students is of didactic interest for us teachers. It should be of a didactic interest. Studies such as Richardson 1994 and Prosser Trigwell 1999 show that students and teachers adopt their strategies according to how they perceive the teaching and study situation. From a holistic perspective, one can study the community of practice that teachers and students create within the framework of university education. In the previous lecture, I told about what we call the call for community in this context and what is practiced, academic practice. The whole education, the education in university, so we call practice. So the main question in this context would be, what knowledge education is favorite? And what knowledge will students have difficulty developing in the specific community of practice? So let's focus on it. This question is central to actors in higher education, especially teachers, leaders, and administrators. Well, the knowledge students develop is related to the prevailing educational culture. It's explained by Biesta, the Spanish scholar Biesta, in his study from 2011. And the Swedish scholar Jette, in her study from 2014, shows factors that influence the type of culture students develop. So the main of these factors is, of course, the cultural opportunities, circumstances. So the factors are how the knowledge object appears in the course, what roles the participants develop, and the internal and external context of the course. So these factors are important for developing both practice and research. Considering the encounter between students and teachers as a complex entity for entity forums, the focus for studies of learning as the basis for community of practice and definition of a cultural perspective on teaching. Let's talk about knowledge domains because we can classify, differentiate different types of knowledge. But in addition to educational culture, distinctive concepts are needed that allow students' development to be followed. Biesta, for example, differentiate knowledge into three main domains. In order to be able to analyze which knowledge development is favorite, we need concepts for different types of knowledge. An example of the division of knowledge types can be found in the Higher Education Ordinance, for example, of the Swedish government. You can also download and read. I would like you do it. Strongly recommend. the Higher Education Ordinance of the Republic of Azerbaijan. It bears traces of Aristotle's division of knowledge into episteme, techne, phronesis. The Higher Education or Ordinance of Swedish government names the categories knowledge and understanding, skills and abilities, and judgment and position taking. In these categories, knowledge has different characteristics. So an alternative classification system is to start from the function of knowledge. That's that knowledge has a specific function within the framework of education. Biesta's classification knowledge into knowledge functions, or you can say domains, includes qualification, socialization, subjectification, and subjectification or domains. So in the following, I am going to explain each of them. So first, qualification. Education should lead students' knowledge development towards a goal, so learning goals. And this goal consists, according to Biesta, of a unique mix of knowledge domains. In the individual education, there is a unique mix between the domains, and the balance delimits which knowledge development is supported. The domain qualification refers to the fact that the teaching should equip the individual with some type of activity. It concerns mental and physical tools that the individual needs to master on a general level and specifically in certain areas. Examples of qualification for a student, for example, studying television production, could be mastering camera and studio equipment, interview techniques, program formats, and communication theory. It concerns skills and theoretical knowledge linked to the knowledge area of television production. The student should understand and carry out separate elements, both materially productive and intellectually analytical. In doing so, we need socialization atmosphere for that. The domain socialization refers to the orientation of education and the introduction of the individual into a prevailing order. Biesta, for example, describes socialization within the subject of mathematics. It's about being included in a community with others. The subject is attributed great value and provides structures for viewing the world rather than mastering mathematical tools. Mathematical logic and mathematical language provide legitimacy and a common basis for understanding. For those studying television production, socialization is about understanding the assignment in its context and being able to use one's skills in new and unexpected situations. It's about being able to sell your production to media companies or managers and structuring workflows and guiding employees in a balance between getting the job done with the right resources and achieving quality for the recipient. If interviewing techniques were knowledge within the qualification domain, then the language use and the ability to conduct an interview could also be placed within the socialization domain. When the student collaborates with other students or teachers or professional actors, the student's ability to describe what he wants to achieve can show the level of knowledge involved. An example of this is that before an interview, the student makes it clear to the employers what the angle of the work is, how she thinks about the clips and other things, necessary things. The ability to communicate with professional colleagues, read the interviewer and change the language in the unique situation shows knowledge in this domain. The student must be familiar with historical and current prominent figures, trends, and discuss with professionals using adequate language. So it's a type of necessary and mandatory knowledge. The domain of subjectification refers to education focused on freedom and responsibility to become and be oneself. The domain can also be described as the ability or resources to create independence. One should be aware of the prevailing order, traditions, and history without being bound by them. To define the concept, Biester links to Kant's Immanuel Kant's ideas in the form of a connection between education and freedom, with the motto, the potential to become self-motivated and self-directed. Biester links the domain of subjectification, or the type of knowledge we call subjectifications type. He links it to democratic questions about the acting person and his or her dependence on other people responding to his or her actions. I connect the sub-categorization domain to a consideration of a current example without taking a position on what is morally right or wrong. So this kind of, this type of knowledge, this category, this domain, what we call subjectification, I consider as a current example without taking a position on what is morally right or wrong. Because if you know it, so you know it, you are convinced what you do and why and how. Edward Snowden is quite famous with his action. He revealed extensive organized surveillance of people far beyond what was known or specified in legal documents, conventions, agreements, etc. If we use the three knowledge domains, qualification, socialization, and subjectification, in a consideration of the case, it could be described as Snowden having qualifying knowledge that allowed him to perform a qualified job within the US surveillance establishment. He also had knowledge in the socialization domain, which made him suitable, visible to those looking for his specific workforce. But Snowden learned so much about the job that the knowledge came into conflict with a moral ethical stance on how citizens should live their lives and what responsibility they have towards the country, the subjectification, that's to say, the subjectification domain. An employer who acts on their own is called often a whistleblower. Such people speak out when a situation conflicts with the societal norms and information that reaches the public. For higher education, activating the knowledge domain could involve students learning. In addition to concrete professional skills, when and on what grounds the individual needs to take a stand and speak out. If an engineer, for example, perceives that the construction of a bridge contains quality reducing shortcuts, or if a teacher perceives that children or staff are being harmed because economic aspects are given precedence over pedagogical or legal aspects, the teacher's following actions describe a personal stance that extends beyond qualification and socialization. A responsible acting teacher appears valuable in contrast to what is perceived as legitimate from a market economic organizational perspective, where the individual is replaceable. Biesta discussed this knowledge function as the ability to break into the world, in contrast to the socialization domain that introduces the individual into a prevailing order. Less drastically, for someone who studies television production, it can be about giving space to an underlying environmental theme or looking for resources to live up to work environment laws. It's about positions and consequences that depend on the specific individual's understanding and intention in the situation. That's why the knowledge domains are given different space. So all three, both qualification, socialization, and subjectification, they can take different extension in our didactic, depending on the education programs. In the education programs that I have studied, for example, the qualification domain was by far the most common. The subjectification domain comes close to the higher education ordinance assessment ability and stance. Knowledge development within the subjectification domain means a lot for students to develop assessment ability and stance. And in doing so, the way of negotiation, so our point of view and opinion negotiation, have a great impact on knowledge development. To study which knowledge development is favored by certain teaching, one needs tools to understand learning processes. I choose to see students' learning as a primary process, a fundamental part of the whole. It's for me a fundamental part of the whole. An essential starting point is that learning involves a change in the individual's capacity to turn today's experiences into future experiences. The students' learning changes the capacity to perceive, interpret, and act in relation to the world, let's say outside world. To study this capacity change, one needs to understand knowledge and processes that constitute parts of the capacity change. I can name and give you a few pedagogical implications, a few examples. Forced learning is in the context of formal education is special. As in traditional education, one expects someone to learn intended knowledge through some form of active support. Wenger, in his study from 1998, argues that there is a crucial difference between the student's initial ability to act and the actions that recognized skilled actors in the knowledge area demonstrate. Skilled actors, teachers, professors, other experts in the field of the specific knowledge area. That is because the student initially, has access only to personal experiences in the knowledge area. Recognized skilled actors, professors, lecturers, scientists, on the other hand, have access to a rich combination of personal experiences, scientifically based and proven experience. That's why the teacher's role in this perspective is to bridge the positions. The teacher knows which thought and action patterns determine the quality of the actions that are typical of the profession. In addition, the teacher can identify knowledge that the students already master and specify what new knowledge the students need to develop. That's why, so I can give you a few didactical implications. If we connect this reasoning to the previously mentioned training program, television program for television producers, there is a corresponding group of students who begin the training with personal experiences. They lack the ability to distinguish which qualities in a production and which qualities in the underlying work process lead to the expression of the overall production. They also lack skills that predictably achieve the qualities and expressions they strive for. The students and teachers also relate to a number of leading producers who are known for their skill within the professional group. By imitating selecting parts of how those recognized as skilled work, the socialization process occurs. That's why your behavior very important. Your students imitate you and gain knowledge in this way. By learning to be able to break with trends and traditions, a subjectification process occurs. The teacher's role in this context is to show the students what the decisive individual qualities are. What they are, decisive individual qualities are based on a holistic understanding of the component of acting, for example, as a television producer, or mathematician, or physician, or in chemistry, etc. If we connect holistic understanding with a teacher bridging the student's personal experience and the experts recognized skillful acting, the teacher must simplify a complex act. The teacher must start from the students to show the next step in their knowledge development. In his function as a link, teacher as a link between all these processes, the teacher can also show how individual skills and abilities are intertwined into a competent performance adapted to the situation. The teacher can help the students discover and explore the specific knowledge objects and their different forms by designing by designing individual course assignments that allow this knowledge object to emerge. That's why let's talk about emergement a little. Anyone who is in any way involved in education knows that students' knowledge development is part of their active participation in their studies. I have followed the implementation of university courses as part of my studies of university culture. I have chosen to study each course as a community of practice. Here you see a quote from a student who participated in a course I studied. So here I give it as an example. He means himself as a student. You really want to pass the course. Of course, you come here to learn, but you want to pass the course as easily as possible. Just move through, because basically you are a pretty lazy person. At least I am. As the quote shows, it can be concluded that the participants have many interests to monitor their knowledge development, and that there are reasons for participating in the course beyond what is visible in an analysis of learning processes. The scholars Anderson and Griesel study from 2002, they describe in this study a number of categories of what students define as a successful studies. These include, for example, status in the group and preparing for working life. Other reasons for students having different study strategies may be that they want to free up time for studies in a parallel course, or to live a social life outside of their studies. In order to understand the intentions and actions that create the course's practice, I have used Wenger's theory of situated social behavior. In doing so, I focus on the encounter between people and investigate influencing factors in practice. Well, knowledge that emerges. One factor describes what knowledge is emerging. It's evident in the courses, partly in terms of how the knowledge is available for students to engage with, and partly in terms of how the knowledge is represented or presented. Qualification knowledge appears with great dominance, both in target documents and in the core practice. In both. One expression of this is that the dialogue between teachers and students, and between students themselves, it's about what should be done under the course and how it should be done. In one course, students had their own understanding of the overall goal, and some of them said, this is the course where you should do the best you can. So one can identify, the students identified the course learning objectives as being relevant to their own goals and the professional future they saw ahead. Also, of the governing documents, examination tasks, and teachers focused on the qualification domain. The students processed and developed knowledge in all three domains, albeit in a decreasing extent, from qualification via socialization and to subjectification. So of course, qualification the dominant. We have less socialization maybe in different kind of courses, and maybe more or less subjectification. But we have in anyway all three. The subjectification domain only appears unintentionally in meaning negotiation within the course. But the students processed it, so there was a hidden potential in the negotiation between teacher and the students. In a traditional method course, almost exclusively qualification knowledge appeared, and the dominant representation consisted of linguistic descriptions from the course literature. Neither socialization nor subjectification was available in traditional teaching to support the students' learning. Socialization could otherwise be an alternative by allowing students to try acting, research, out-researching, and understanding context by taking on a probing role in conversations and discussions. That was all for this lecture. To summarize our first model, so please revise all the literature we dealt with during this first model, and concentrate on your first assignment. Good luck. See you.